Welcome to Will It Work? I'm Kevin. Today we're looking at the Tele-Action Mini TV game for electronic action games with the Pro-Am option. Includes tennis, practice, hockey, squash, etc. It's a Pong system basically, but it's a handheld unit, which is kind of neat. And we'll be taking a look to see if it works, because that's the point of this show. But I do want to point something out about this particular unit. I have another one of these. Looks exactly the same, but the manufacturer branding is totally different. I believe it says Radofin. So, not sure what that's about. Could be a story. Maybe Radofin contracted out a company in Hong Kong to make it for them, and then that company put their own label on it and sold it in a different region. Maybe DMS was bought out by Radofin, and they rebranded the box. I don't know. I'm sure somebody probably does, and it's probably on the internet. But yeah, I didn't bother to search for it because it's not that interesting. But I am going to count them as separate systems in this because they have different they have different branding. Probably it's the same manufacturer, right? But they're completely identical. There may even be another model. There may be a third one of these or a fourth one. I don't know. I own two. We're going to count them both separately, and we're going to see if both work. Right now, we're just going to look at the DMS one, and when I unearth the Radofin one, we'll take a look at it. As a side note, I have found a TV scoreboard with the original light gun in it. Ridiculous revolver that if you were playing with that, named it like a police officer, you'd probably get shot and killed. This was all before they started making things with orange tips and bright colors because authenticity, I guess, in the 70s was the thing. I don't know if this gun works or whatever. There's no point in really testing the guns because you can only do that on a CRT TV, and those shooting gallery games are neither here nor there, really. They're not that great. But I just wanted to point out that I did find the gun. I also own a gun that is in a box that is generic. It is meant for a variety of Pong games. If you have the standardized gun port, you can use the gun on that game. So maybe when I run into a game that has it, I will bring it out and we can look at it. But most of those shooting games just involve shooting a dot on the screen. We didn't really get into anything good until, probably Duck Hunt on the NES when, gun games had evolved to something a little bit more interesting. But I just wanted to kind of bring that up since we looked at the TV scoreboard before. All right, so let's take a look at this. We have the Telesports Mini manual. We suggest you take a few minutes to read the leaflet so you'll know about all the controls and special features built into your new TV game. Yeah, not that interesting. Just trying to see if there's any branding on here, but it just says printed in Hong Kong, so they probably just, put this in any old box. We have the DMS branding here and here. We have the usual cord has melted to the foam over time. Honestly, this cord is really shiny. I would almost think that this has never been used before. This switch box, for instance, is also pretty shiny. Usually these things are pretty oxidized at this point. This one looks pretty good. which is a surprise. They're all pretty generic. They probably buy these all from the same place. But, yeah, not oxidized. Really interesting. It's not like I kept it in anything kind of special. I mean, I do keep all of my stuff in a cool, dry place. But one year I had a little bit of a water issue. It didn't flood my basement or anything, but I had some damage to, especially just some boxes. Nothing major, no consoles were flooded or anything, but, I have had issues with storage. So we're looking at 6 AA's, which gives us the usual 6 volt. No, this would be a 9 volt. This would be a 9 volt system. Couldn't just put one 9 volt battery in here, guys. Come on with the 6 AA's. What are you doing to us? And then, interestingly enough, this one takes the batteries and is light, right? And then this one, which does not take the batteries, is heavy. So this is probably the brain on this side, and this is the control. So we have a TV switch here. No, it's on and off. And we play with this as our unit instead of the dial. We do have a DC in. That's a pretty small plug. We may have one that fits that, but otherwise I do have batteries. Generally like to use the batteries anyway because you can never, they don't usually tell you the polarity on these things. And for the most part, they're pretty standard with like power in the center and the negative on the outside, which is kind of safe. And, you want your negative on the outside because, if the power lead touches something on the external, it gets grounded. It's kind of what you want. But like stuff like the Atari Jaguar, for instance, is the opposite. And if you didn't know that and you plugged it in with it reversed, you could actually short out your Atari Jaguar. Maybe that's why they're really expensive. So, nothing here, but we do have some options on here. So we have the ball speed, amateur and pro-am. We have the ball angle, ball or player size, and it's set at practice. See, this is another reason why I think maybe this hasn't been played, because these are all set to amateur and it's set to practice. I mean, who's doing that? That sounds horribly boring. Although this was turned on and it wasn't on, it was off. But maybe that was just how it left the factory. I don't know. All right, let's put some, I don't see any place for sound. So, the question's going to be black and white, color, sound through the RF cable. We're going to find out. Let's do the battery thing. Let's do the battery thing again. Sometimes I like taking you guys on the journey of me putting the batteries into the unit, especially when I do it backwards. So that's always good for the kids. And then hold you hostage here before I switch over to the video. I kind of like to see if it makes noise because I want you guys to actually be here. Like when it goes beep, boop, beep, and we go, oh, it's working, But this one's hard to tell because I don't see a speaker. So we'll both be surprised if it actually makes some noise here when I turn it on. To cannibalize my remote's batteries to make this happen. Okay. And no sound. Okay, well, I'm going to switch it over to the TV side of things, and let's see if we get some video out of here and maybe some audio. Hang tight. Okay, so looking at the DMS Tele-Action Mini here, this is the best screen that I could get. I did open it up and I adjusted the pots, which are like these 2 screws that you can do to adjust the tuner
as well as how that play field is centered. And yeah, that's about as good as it was going to go. So obviously, it has something wrong with it, and it needs some tender loving care. But I was able to at least get a display of some sort out of it, so it's not dead. So I will keep it. But I will mention that it is running the same microchip, General Instruments chip that the vast majority, not all, the vast majority of the consoles that we look at have. Atari makes their own, and there are some other ones out there as well that we've seen, and we'll certainly see more. Now, like I said, I do have another version of this. It's a Radofin model, so we will check that out and see if we can get a better display. But ultimately, this is a I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Like if this was totally working, and you're looking at all these other Pong systems, this one had the sense to at least give you control, in your hand, and all of the options in your hand. If you've been following this, I've talked about that a little bit, where it's sort of dumb to have these handheld controls. Atari has this kind of thing going on, but if you want to actually change any options or restart or anything, you have to go to the base unit. So you're really not going too far away from the unit itself. So it's like this was completely handheld, one wire if you're using batteries. It's your typical plug and play TV game. It's not a lot different than the other plug and play TV games we've looked at, except it just plays a game of Pong, and it's really old and doesn't have a display right now. But ultimately, it's it's a little piece of interesting history. That they were kind of thinking, maybe people want to sit on the couch and play Pong. One or two companies were thinking that way. And a bunch of other companies were still thinking, nah, everybody wants to sit right in front of the TV and play games right on the unit. I don't know. It's just how marketing worked back then. Costs and all that kind of thing. All right. Well, anyway, we'll move on to the next one, but we'll see how the Radofin does. And this one's a keeper. Later.